Welcome back to live coverage here on Yahoo Finance. I'm Zach Guzman, and very happy to be joined now by the host of Shark Tank, our favorite host and friend of the show, Barbara Corcoran, joins us now. Barbara, always good to see you. First off, I want to just get your take right now, as we've been highlighting pretty worrying case counts rising right now on the coronavirus front in Texas, Arizona, and Florida. I know you've been pretty adamant about supporting businesses, including your Shark Tank investments here through the Paycheck Protection Program. But as we see a potential here for a second spike, curious to get your take on how those businesses are doing and whether or not more stimulus will be needed here for businesses across the country.
Well, with the second insurgence, which I'm not sure all of us expected, it isn't the news we were hoping for. And people, I guess, went to the party too early. But it's causing a great concern among the businesses I've invested in because they were, like all of us, wishing and hoping and praying that everything was behind them. And many of them are located in the states that opened early. I guess it's now a count of 9 states that have a spike in cases. But, it's a tough call. Who decides when it reopens? What's going to happen to these businesses if we do have a second spike? And I can tell you, with the majority of my businesses, they're not going to survive. I mean, they came through this one with a lot of wit, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of creativity, and putting their pedal to the metal. And I'm not sure they have the gumption to do a second run if we should go down into lockdown all over again.
I mean, gumption's one thing, but also funding here too. I mean, you talked about how many of your businesses were in precarious positions here without Paycheck Protection funding. It took them a while to get that money, but now even getting it, beyond that, still a lot of issues just as we're thinking about potential lockdowns again. Of course, the Trump administration has said that those are not on the table, so maybe not actually going to be happening here. But beyond that, I mean, we talked about waves of stimulus checks right now, Republicans, Democrats still going back and forth. What's your take on what else might be needed on the stimulus front here as, again, we're continuing to monitor case counts going in the wrong direction?
Well, let's be positive just for a moment. If they don't go in the wrong direction, I must say that I think the PPP loans was the major savior in the game here in terms of how effective they were, how they played out against my businesses, or for my businesses, I should say. They're enormously effective in giving people the breath to come through the hardship or over the bridge. In terms of execution, I would have to give it an F because the way it was rolled out was complicated. Even the forgiveness on the forms, which are now changing again, hopefully making them more simplified, it was just terribly done. Okay. But you can't argue with the fact that these PPP loans were essential to keep these businesses afloat. And so if there's nothing on the table right now saying that might be promised in the future, I don't think you could take that seriously. We don't have the future in front of us right now. I'm sure something will happen. Everybody wants to get favor with small business consumers, and there'll be some other incentive somewhere along the way. So I'm going to keep the faith on that. But it's amazing to me. The good news about this whole thing is it's amazing to me how many of my really smart businesses pulled ahead and are doing so much better than before the virus even hit. I have a little company named Comfy that was doing $43 million in retail sales, and it went to zero within 2 weeks. And they totally converted it to online sales of $67 million. How they pull that out, I'm still scratching my head and wondering. And then, you have a crazy food truck business I'm involved in, Cousins Maine Lobster. Who wants to be in a long line waiting for a lobster roll when you're going to get the virus from the next guy? Well, they just rolled out a contactless delivery system in the parking lots of major big box stores that were closed, and people drove up and picked up their lobster tail. And then you got Daisy Cakes making birthday cakes, the best delicious birthday cakes in the world, selling like hotcakes. So it's amazing how people will turn things around. And that has really been the very positive up feeling about this whole thing that I keep looking at. I'm looking at the good news. You know what I mean?
I mean, that is good. And we have seen a lot of businesses, navigating this and using funds to weather the storm. But now it seems like the question has become getting people back to work. And we did see out of the last jobs report, promising developments on that front, maybe not as much as people hoped. But when we look at, what could happen moving forward right now, it seems like Republicans might be pushing for a return to work bonus as we see that extra $600 at the federal level on unemployment insurance roll off at the end of July. And I had heard some, anecdotes here from friends even saying that they might not go back to work because their unemployment is actually better than what they could get. So as we're seeing that kind of approach here at the end of July, what's your thinking about whether or not that bonus should stay in? Should it go away? Should you have a return to work bonus? What's your thinking? And have you seen any of that in your own businesses and maybe struggling to get people to come back in?
Very much. That is a major concern right now. First, it was keeping people on payroll, and now it's having them come back. Especially in food services area, especially with lower priced workers, they don't want to come back to work. And I know I had a lot of conversations with my businesses the beginning of last week who really were struggling with the issue of trying to talk their employees into coming back and looking for sale pitches to give them to convince them to come back. And so I gave them some little tough talk about, okay, here's what you do, give them a deadline. And guess what? A miracle really happened. A lot of their workers came back. The great majority of the workers who wouldn't come back the week before are now sitting and working for those businesses. But you have to appreciate the workers' not only concern about the health of coming back, but you have to appreciate, why would you come back if you could make more money with your freedom at home? And so I am not in the camp of extending that $600. I might eat my words and feel very differently a couple of months from now, depending upon what goes on with COVID. But right now, I think it's more of a disincentive to get businesses up and running than it is helping it. I think there's a time to chop it, and it's happening in the upcoming month, and I think that's a good thing. I hope I don't sound too tough, but I really believe it's getting in the way right now.
No, I mean, I think it's a tricky thing, especially if you're trying to incentivize a return to business. No doubt why the president is in an election year. But of course, it's one of those things where everything's moving so quickly. We have case counts rising. You don't really know how serious those health concerns will be. And we'll see what happens as we get closer to the end of that.
Hey, investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.